My name is Jennifer Harrison. I am the founder of Victims' Rights New York. Sadly, I was thrown into this world and forced to become an expert on the issues we are here to discuss when on January 15th of 2005, both my boyfriend and his best friend were murdered. 3 brothers were arrested and charged, but justice was not served, as 2 of these brothers, both who had records, were freed in a sweetheart deal. Ultimately, only one person served just 9.5 years for killing 2 people. Through that horrible experience, I connected with support groups on both the national and local level. I became an advocate against some of the atrocities I witnessed and tried to help other survivors of homicide victims connect with the resources they need to navigate through this endless nightmare. I've been doing so for over 18 years. I became more politically involved and got louder in 2017 when I learned of bail reform and other dangerous and deadly so-called social justice reforms. Nobody wanted to listen to us though. The victims that have to live with the consequences of these decisions for the rest of our lives, when we warned of the harm that this would cause. Victims have no voice in politics or government, so I want to thank this committee from the very bottom of my heart for giving victims that voice today. There is a depraved indifference towards human life sweeping across our country, even amongst elected officials. Normally, the criminals exude this depravity, yet here we have the one that is supposed to prosecute them as the one showing it. I would also like to say that if Alvin Bragg was doing his job, none of us would be here today to talk. We are not politicizing our issues or our loss. From day one, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg announced he would not prosecute even very violent crimes in his now infamous memo. We saw an immediate result. 2 police officers were shot and killed, a 19-year-old girl was murdered while working at Burger King, and multiple police officers were shot in separate incidents. Things have not gotten better, only progressively worse. Bragg's office has downgraded 52% of felonies, and even when his office does decide to prosecute a case, they only have about a 50% conviction rate. No one is safer, as he promised, as a result of his delusion or diversions. During Bragg's first year in office in 2002, the crime index went up 25.57% borough-wide, violent crime up 11.73%, and in Manhattan South, 1 precinct alone, murders were up 40%. You will hear many horrible stories today. We read about them almost daily, like Madeline Brame and Jose Alba, whose testimonies will speak for themselves. I am here today on behalf of the many other victims that reach out to me and are afraid to speak out, who are completely distraught with the way they have been or are being treated by the career public defenders in Bragg's office. They are being told the office does not have the resources to prosecute their case. We have heard nothing about murdered victims Crystal Baraniev's, Michelle Go, Christina Lee, or how their cases are being handled. Christina Lee was brutally murdered by a mentally ill homeless man who was supposed to be under supervised release in a shelter run by a nonprofit. Who was supervising this emotionally disturbed man? How did this happen? The Manhattan DA's office has the authority and the duty to investigate and indict or make recommendations in situations like this that will keep New Yorkers safe and prevent it from happening again. Yet none of that has been done. Does Bragg's office not have the resources for this either? I have heard from victims of domestic violence and hate crimes that have not been charged, who are also unable to get the support services they are not only entitled to, but that the Manhattan DA's office receives federal and state funding to provide. Why are they not providing these services efficiently? Over 65 assistant district attorneys left the office in the first half of 2022. Most were experienced veteran prosecutors that cannot be replaced. Only a select few are left in that office to fight for victims. What resources is Alvin Bragg using to replace those that left instead of using their exit as a scapegoat for not prosecuting cases? It is a very scary time to be here. God forbid you or your family are victimized. Who do you have to fight for you? No one. Alvin Bragg has given excuse after excuse to not prosecute violent crimes, forsaking not only the distraught and forever changed victims, but the entire justice system. And we have no recourse when our rights are violated. We cannot file for prosecutorial misconduct. Only the criminals can, even when they violate our fundamental rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Alvin Bragg's dereliction of duty and malfeasance has caused tremendous harm. In our newfound progressive society, all of the compassion and empathy is placed with those intentionally inflicting harm on others and not with the innocent casualty, the victim. So again, I thank you for giving victims a voice today and for allowing us to shed some light on what is happening here in hopes that it will change everywhere.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. All right, so you have just heard from the first two witnesses in this field hearing on crime here in New York City. We have our guests here with us, John Levine and Harold Ford Jr.